Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Emily King.
And I'm Richie King.
And we're back live with another episode of Five Boys in a Business, a podcast where we talk about our family, our business, and the many shenanigans involved. You can check out the podcast most Mondays around 10:30ish live on Facebook or Instagram, or you can listen to it on any of the podcast services. So also don't forget to check out the merch store, asvcmerch.com, where we've got long sleeve shirts and short sleeve shirts, as well as our stocking hats, and now, and then socks.
Socks too.
Head to toe. But the thing I'm most excited about now are the onesies for our non-fur baby families members that are coming or here now. So don't forget to check it out and see what we've got. There you go. There's Dad.
Hey, look, who's that guy? But he sells lots of stuff. Lots of stuff from that. Lots of clicks on that guy.
Oh, gosh.
So today we have on Five Boys in the Business, we have Evan Stevens and Tyler Campbell from Mission Veterinary Partners. Just a little bit about Evan to start with. Evan is a Michigan native and obtained his undergraduate degree in economics from Dartmouth College in 2011. Evan is currently an executive vice president in charge of business development with Mission Veterinary Partners. Mission Veterinary Partners is a corporate group of veterinary hospitals that specialize in partnering with other veterinary hospitals to assist with succession planning and or growth. In his role at MVP, Evan enjoys engaging with entrepreneurial business owners who want to join a dynamic growing company. Outside of work, Evan's interests include playing hockey, spending time with his family, water sports, skiing, and playing golf. And a bit more about Tyler. Tyler is a native of Kentucky. Go Kentucky. And
except as your arm burning.
Right.
You're like, I can't touch it. Dang it, I can't touch it.
Right. Hold it up. Keep him close. It's kryptonite.
Not to mention Kentucky, but then where else did you go to school?
Oh, yeah. Native of Kentucky, and he obtained his Master of Science degree in reproductive physiology at Sul Ross State University and was a doctoral candidate for renewable natural resources and embryo biotech at Louisiana State University. Tyler is currently the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships with MVP. Welcome, both Tyler and Evan. Thanks for coming.
Yeah,
today.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, guys. We're pumped to be here.
So I have one quick question for you, Evan, to start.
Yeah.
You went to Dartmouth. You graduated in 2011. Were you at the commencement address where Conan O'Brien spoke?
That was my graduation year.
No way. That was really good.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So it's actually funny that you brought that up. So both sets of my grandparents were there, and I was trying to prepare them for you might not like
what he says.
Yeah, like it's going to be
Right.
kind of funny, quirky.
Right.
And both sets came up to me and like, that was the best commencement address I've ever seen. And I'm like, we got so lucky that year.
No kidding.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
I've actually watched that back just like remind myself of obviously
cool
the
it
good
was?
old days, but
Yeah,
it's
the
good.
good days.
It's good to. It was awesome that he did it, and he did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Young, old parents, grandparents,
Yeah.
everybody was very, very pumped about it. Yeah, we had a good time, and he was awesome. He's
Yeah,
a Harvard grad, which we don't like, but that's all right. Yeah.
Well, it's so funny because I've seen that several times, and the way that he wove in the humor and the actual practical advice was so unique compared to some of the commencement
That we've all
addresses that
listened
I've been
Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah, I mean, it was listening to me. It pulls at the heartstrings a little bit, thinking back to those times and those years, and
Right.
the people that you're surrounded with there were just incredible individuals. So I felt lucky to be there. I felt lucky to go there,
Right.
and then have somebody like that be able to make you laugh, and then really kind of think about your next steps and what's ahead of you. I thought he did a fantastic job too, and I didn't even know his whole backstory. I mean, I wasn't
Right.
really in tune with his whole struggle and up and down, and it was cool to hear, and I thought he did a great job. It was inspiring for everybody there.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And I went to the 2012. At the time, I was seeing someone, so I went back the next year.
Right.
And it was snooze fest. So
they
I felt
usually are.
You're like,
really
"This is gonna be
lucky.
good."
Yeah,
I was like,
I'm like, that's how they're gonna outdo Conan, and
Yeah.
it didn't. So whoever that, I know who it was, but I apologize if you're listening. But yeah, it
that's-
wasn't as good as Conan.
How do you even why do you even accept the next year to be that person?
Right.
I
Well,
would be
especially when
like,
you see it too.
yeah.
You're walking into a
Oh
disappointment.
man, that would be so hard to follow.
That's a tough act to follow. That's for sure.
You'd
Yeah,
think
that's
people would
right.
forget about it. Oh, sorry. Okay, I don't know what that was. I mean, I just think it's a year, from the first time you
Right.
listen to them, but then there's just no way.
There's no way.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's-
and all the commencement addresses that I've been to, when I've graduated, it's you go and it's like, let's go. Let's keep this 5
Yeah.
minutes. We
Yeah.
got to say, so yeah. So
Yeah.
that's cool. I thought that was a really neat thing. And so.
That's fantastic. Yeah, like I said, I've watched that half a dozen times since I graduated. I love it. So
Such talent with Conan O'Brien. I can't
right.
imagine. It's just guys dripping with, comedic
Right.
timing and everything. The content, what he had to say, it was great.
Yeah, it's
Tyler,
awesome.
do you remember who your person was?
I honestly do not.
No.
It was a snooze fest.
Neither
Right?
do
It was a
I. I don't
snooze
remember
fest.
who our
Any
person
of
was
them.
either. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, hey.
Give us our degree. Come on, let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
See the
That's all
express
right.
line. Pay $20 extra. That's right. Degree, get out of there.
That's right.
Oh gosh,
So,
the fast pass.
That's
Yeah.
right.
No kidding. So you studied econ there. What made you choose econ?
Good question. So my dad and grandfather started a small business in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So I knew I was kind of raised with that upbringing of, business owner, work hard, saw that with my mom and my dad kind of involved in the company. And so I knew I wanted to get involved in business. And then when I was in high school, I was playing hockey a lot growing up. And so I was in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, actually, where I graduated high school. And I had an economics teacher there that I just loved. It was the first time I'd taken it. And so I just got excited about it. And when I got to Dartmouth, I would say I didn't do well in my first math class. So econ was like, I needed something that I was good at. And econ was it. Liberal arts. So I wanted to do business, and economics was as close as I could to at Dartmouth. And I took a couple undergraduate Tuck courses, which Tuck is the business school out there. So business was always the idea. Econ was the right fit for me. And it was great. So I played hockey there as well. And one of the advisors of the hockey team was an economics professor. And so it was kind of nice that I got plugged in with them. And all of my professor mentors were in the econ department, and just had a really good experience with them. And I think it's kind of like with anything in life, you kind of get drawn to the people that you look up to, and that whatever that might be. And so econ was that for me, and I really enjoyed it. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Who was it? Harrison that took econ in high school? Harrison you took econ.
I did not do well in econ. Can't confirm.
Well, I remember when he took it. It's funny because I said supply demand. If you understand this, you understand 90% of everything.
That's right. Well, Harris, I didn't take I took one computer science course, and that was a disaster. So I know you're on the gaming side, so that was the opposite for me. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was for me too. It was I grew up in a small community. Dartmouth was obviously a huge goal of mine. I mean, I was really excited to go there. But I think anywhere, like I would have struggled in a big classroom. Dartmouth to me was more, I was able to build the relationships with the professors. I was able to kind of have that personal side of it. And hockey players, sometimes we were gone a lot, and it was good to be able to do that. And I think that really helped me. And I enjoyed the small nature of it, and I think it paid off. So
That's cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So you guys are here as representatives of MVP.
Yeah.
How would you describe, or like if you were walking up to somebody you didn't know and talking to them about MVP, what would you say? Like, how would you tell them about what you guys do, what also the business is?
Yeah. The simple one for me is I kind of describe us as a service organization, where we service kind of the back office, the support system for veterinary hospitals. I mean, that at a very high level, that's how I think about our company. Within the company, we're obviously the ones out on the road trying to find how do we make our company bigger? Who can we find to support across the country? And that's what we're doing. So we're adding hospitals in. Tyler and I my background is obviously economics, but finance, structuring, transactions, and business valuation. So that's what I provide. And then I get to work with great folks like Tyler, who extremely smart, kind of out knocking on doors and finding hospitals that fit our model. But yeah, at a high level, we're a service organization. I mean, I think our job at MVP is to provide top talent from our side to each of our practices in a lot of the different support functions, like recruiting, like negotiating with the vendors, getting better pricing so they're your clients that walk in the door, they can get a good, better price for things. HR benefits, we do a great job negotiating with Blue Cross and all those different companies so we can provide benefits to all of our folks. And I think it's really hard to do that at every individual practice, and so we're the service organization that does that.
That's an interesting way of thinking of it as a service provider. That's
I mean,
a
I
cool way
think
to think
it is neat because we get to have a lot of these conversations. And I think some groups are our competitors where we're an acquisition group, right? We're out to buy more hospitals, or we're here to I don't want to say raise prices, but we're here to cut costs and grow profitability and all those things. And hey, listen, we're a business and we need to stay in business, so we don't look the other way on those things. But I think at our core, we're a service organization, and we've invested heavily into make sure that we can provide those services.
Cool.
Yeah, it's interesting, the large buying power of larger organizations compared to like the decentralized, I mean, the way that a lot of, single-owned veterinary hospitals are today. I mean, you do have the larger, the bigger players, the bigger pie, so to speak, that can go in, like you say, and negotiate with, vendors and things like that, other providers, and get the best value.
Yeah. I mean, we look at that a lot, and coming from outside the veterinary industry, 3.5 years ago before we got started, it's eye-opening, I think, when they're all small businesses, and you're exactly right. It's really hard to do that, and you're competing against billion-dollar companies. Like you walk into a room with name your vendor, that's a billion-dollar company.
Yeah.
How can you negotiate, right? Because they've got all the power, and I think.
I mean, and even for us,
you
can't.
It's
I
hard.
mean, even for us as like when we started the clinic, it was just me compared to now when like how we've grown. The difference in how the vendors treat you, and it's not even we're still a small fry,
Right.
like, you know what I mean, but you can even feel the difference over that time period, and then you add in now, like you said, $1 billion company. Like, can you imagine the difference between this currently and then $1 billion company? It's like, wow. And you still even have those single practice owners, you know what I mean, that are trying to do that.
That's right.
Which makes it really, it makes it really hard to run the organization, and it's tiring.
Yeah.
For them.
Exactly. One of the things that we talk a lot about at MVP, and we've, I would say, I think there's a misconception in our eyes that veterinarians are bad at business.
Sure.
Right. And they don't know what they're doing. To your point, you guys started with next to nothing, and you've built this business. You're good at business. What we see is you just don't have the time to do this, right? You would know how to negotiate. You would know how to try to stand up to them. But, without the purchasing power, and time to go spend weeks on weeks on weeks looking at all the different schedules and all the different pricing and all those different things, you just don't have the time to do that.
Right.
It's not that you don't know how to, it's just don't have the time to.
Right.
And I think that's where, again, back to that service organization side, we're saying all of our practices have these ideas. All of our practices have those things that they know their individual clinic need from a business side. Let us be the support system. And contracts, that's the easy one to point out because they're hard to deal with, and you're dealing with big companies, and I think we can add a lot of value doing that, and that's where we get excited about adding value.
Right.
I think it's interesting because, as you mentioned, you go from basically an idea on a sheet of paper, for a business, and you bring it to fruition, and it becomes an ongoing concern.
Right.
But in the meantime, you wear so many hats. You wear every hat because there is no one else.
Right.
And then making that transition over as you grow to say, I really only, instead of wearing every hat, I only want to wear these two.
Right.
And you kind of specialize in your own specific skill set,
right,
and your own specific value add. And I think, to your point, that's where a lot of hospitals, us included, those are some of the challenges you face as you grow.
It's hard to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's why, I was one of the first folks to join MVP when we kind of formed, and we formed with 22 practices in 2017. So I was one of the first to jump in, myself and our CFO, Matt Davis. But same point. Even when we were at that big,
right,
in the last 26 months, we've had to specialize, and that's why we were able to bring on great folks like Tyler, where it's like, Tyler does really, really good at, his role, and I can't do that, right? I could, maybe not as well, but I can't spend that time anymore, right? So every organization goes through those things, and
scaling, right?
That's right.
Basically, right?
Yeah, and I don't say pick your lane, but I think there are just experts in things that, in any sort of lane, any more sort of responsibility, there's going to be an expert. There's going to be somebody that can do that better than I can. And I think our job at MVP is to make sure that we can find the best people in each of those lanes, so our hospitals know that they're getting an expert, and they're getting somebody, whether it's, marketing with Google AdWords and everything you can try to do there, or recruiting, right? Finding the talent at each one of our hospitals when you lose somebody that you didn't want to lose, and how can we help replace? Right. You've got a team that we know we've hired expert recruiters, right? I'm not an expert recruiter. It shouldn't be me. It shouldn't be Tyler, and I think it's hard for individual hospitals to have those types of people. And I think back to, I'll tell you a quick funny story, maybe not funny, but so my dad and grandfather owned a small business in the UP, and I've been thinking a lot about this recently. My grandfather just passed last month, so I've kind of reliving a lot of these stories, but it was funny. So they grew it for 35 years. It was one of the biggest employers in Go-Give-It County, which is where I grew up in Michigan. And they sold the business in 2011 to, wasn't a competitor, but somebody who frankly was going to provide them a lot of new avenues for growth. They knew all the different relationships that my dad and the company didn't have. And so within 2 years, Iron Plastics with the company had doubled So I always joke with my dad. I'm like, you should have sold this thing a long time ago.
Right.
What the heck were you doing?
Right.
And in a small community, to grow from 100 employees to 200 employees, I mean that's a big impact on the community. So it's cool to see, and so I give him a hard time of like, you've held this thing back for 37
Right.
years,
What are you
35
doing?
years. Yeah, what the heck? So, but it goes back to those conversations about scaling and things like that. And I think he did a great job. But you get a company that bought him was a big business,
Right.
and they know how to they could help instruct them a little bit better. And I think it was so he keeps asking me questions on how we're doing at MVP, and I keep telling him, well, hey, you didn't do that good of a job of it for 35 years.
Last 24
Right,
months
yeah.
of the big
The
ones,
hell,
whatever.
Yeah, but no, it's good.
So what concepts were used to form MVP, and that maybe still drive the vision or the mission of the company?
Yeah. Glad you asked. So we had we have two veterinarian co-founders, and one was based in Michigan, one was in Wisconsin. And again, when I met them, I wasn't working for MVP. It was still in its infancy, if you will. And how we got formed, just quickly, Shore Capital is a private equity firm in Chicago. They're our finance partner. They're helping us grow. So when we talk about all these investments in our team and partnering with hospitals, they're helping fund that growth for us. So Shore Capital made the investment in our two co-founders. And I think the seed that we had at the end of 2017 was our two co-founders were looking around in their local communities, and collectively they had 22 hospitals. So they were pretty sizable in and of themselves. But they were looking around, and other clinics in their area were being sold and bought by corporate groups. And they years were going by that this was happening. Wow, that used to be a good clinic, and now it's not. And wow, I just heard from these folks that they really didn't have a good experience, and the team isn't happy, and all their veterinarians just left. And why is this happening? And how, okay, well, this is going to continue. They said, we think corporatization of veterinary medicine is going to happen. And we can sit here and say, wow, all these people are doing it wrong, and just let it happen. Or let's put our heads together and let's create something. Let's become a leader in this, and let's be the company that's putting their people first, not being we don't think it's bad to be corporate, but we think there are bad corporates, right?
Right.
Let's be a good corporate.
Right.
And let's do it right, because they were looking around and saw a lot of folks not doing it right. And so our mission from day one was, we want to put our people first, and we want to be the employer of choice. And, like you said, you start with a business plan, you got it on a piece of paper. And I think it's been fun over the last 26 months to really see that develop as a business. And so, that was kind of the formation. It was like, let's not sit on the sidelines here. Let's do something about this, because this is a fun industry. These are excellent people, and they deserve to have a group that is going to treat them well, continue on the legacy of each of the hospitals that we have in our group. And, we've expanded very quickly, but I think we've had some really, really good success, because that's our mission, and that's what we're doing, is making sure that our team members are happy, they're taken care of. And there's a lot of things that we've been doing internally to make sure that that's the case.
That's one of the things we actually did. It's funny you mentioned that, but try to be different. When we first started, we did a small market study and just talked to people. What do you dislike about your hospital you go to?
Right.
And we looked for common themes, things that they didn't like, things they did like, and we tried to eliminate things they didn't like, obviously,
That's right.
and make some of those kind of bullet points are key items that we focused on, and that's actually driven us to this day. I always look for things that can make you different, separate you from the pack, things like that. So.
No, I think that's exactly right. Well, I'll say this. I think this is the only veterinary clinic in the nation that has a studio in it. And so you guys are doing things different, and obviously it's paying off. So no, but I think that's right. And I think some of the things that I'll comment on just organizationally what we have in place to help promote that people first mentality. There's really three things, I think, and one is we've got a dedication for training and education and communication, and I guess I would kind of compare it to how you guys maybe operate your practice. I think there's you guys as the leaders, you come up with ideas and initiatives and things that you want to do, and how do you communicate that to each one of the team members and get them to buy in, right? And we as an organization, it's hard to do, right? You have 65 practices, and we've got a team of 70 people in Michigan. And like I said, we've got a lot of experts. We've got a lot of really good ideas. And how do we make sure that the things that we can do to help are being communicated to each one of the team members in 65 practices across the country? It's hard to do. So we've taken a very methodical, thoughtful approach to how those things are being communicated. So we invest heavily into training and education, bringing people to one location. For example, we had a conference in November. We literally brought all of our veterinarians, all of our business leaders to Michigan. 250 people were there. We actually shut down a couple practices for a day and a half to like get everybody in one room. And for us, like losing 1.5 days of revenue at the practice was having them at the conference was far more important, because we were able to talk, be in person, have them meet our team, learn how can we help with recruiting, learn the programs that we're thinking about with preferred vendors and things like that, that we're not just sitting in Michigan, twiddling our thumbs saying, great, we got all these practices. We're actually working. We want to be able to communicate the why behind the things that we're doing. And I think in any sort of training and education, I'm sure you guys go through it here, it's explaining the why. It's having them understand this is how this can impact MVP, can impact our practice, can impact me as an individual, right? And I think that's really important. And so we've invested a lot of money, time, and human resources to make sure that message can be communicated, and then our team members, you hate to say the term bought in, but are bought in, right? They want to feel like they're owners. They want to feel like they're impacting what we're doing. And so we've just been very, very focused on that as a business, and I don't think every group can say that. So that's one of the things that we're putting them at the forefront of why and communicating why, and I think that's really important. And one other thing I want to mention is our profit sharing plan, and back to the why. So we have things in place that can help our practices. Like I said, like we can lower the cost that you're paying for things, right? And so that helps the practice profitability. And we have what we call our Dream Fund. And so how that got started was back to this foundation of MVP. We would go into the practices that we started with 22 and soon to be there, more. And we came away and just said, we fundamentally disagree that some of our workers, the receptionists, the techs, the assistants, are living paycheck to paycheck, could go find another job at Walmart or name your company and make the same wage. And their day to day is really, really hard, right? It's really hard. And as a business, we said, we won't allow this. We are going to shift how this works. We want to shift the money going up to the money coming back down, and that's our Dream Fund. And so the things that we negotiate, our preferred vendors, are working with different folks to help lower costs at each clinic. The profit growth that we achieve gets delivered, 20% of it gets delivered back to our team members, right? So the money in MVP isn't going up to Shore Capital, isn't going up to our CEO. We want to reinvest. We have to reinvest, right? Be the employer of choice. Like I said earlier, we can't go out of business if you're the employer of choice. Right. So we need to think about profitability. But if we can have our team members making $14, $15, $60 an hour, all of a sudden making $17, $18, $19, $20 an hour because of we're able to help them and then provide those dollars back through our Dream Fund, we think that's not only the right thing to do, but a fantastic way to change what's happening in this industry.
All right.
So.
Yeah, and that was something that we visited before. And I had brought up because when I was kind of just looking at your website, the Dream Fund or whatever, and the book that I've read is called The Dream Manager, which puts a person in place, like it was based off a cleaning company, a janitorial service, that basically they were having such high turnover. I think they were turning people over like every 7 months or something stupid. Gosh. Yeah, because it was considered a dead-end job. And so what they had to do was figure out how to make it a stepping stone. Instead of a dead-end job, this is a stepping stone. Yeah. And so, having a Dream Manager, which helps people facilitate really where they're going, what do they want to accomplish, and things like that, And so I think it's of extreme value because it creates loyalty, within the business. And then, so like for our organization, us knowing what their dreams are, then, and us helping to facilitate them pushes them, to be better. And, for some of them, your high school worker who's a kennel worker, they're not staying here forever, right? So, and to think otherwise is just ludicrous.
Silly,
so
right, yeah.
Why not position them to be better when they leave, or to accomplish something that is really high on their list, and so I think that's something that gets missed in a lot of organizations.
Yeah, I think so too. And Tyler, do you want to talk about Carlene? It's actually funny talking about like the dream leader. We have something like that,
right? So coming from outside, so I'm not in veterinary services. I was a certified financial planner, had a successful practice, but we did a lot of business succession. So worked with a lot of different clients as they were, as they were transitioning their business to a group much like MVP. And what I saw in MVP was what I wanted all of my clients to be able to sell to.
Right.
And the one of the things, so the Dream Fund was one of those things that I thought, hey, that's unique. You don't see that. But we have a chief culture officer. So Carlene Bellier was the CEO of the Michigan Veterinary Medical Association for 15 years, and she actually left that post to come to MVP because she saw the mission, she saw what we were doing, and she said, hey, that's unique. I want to be a part of that. And her job is to make sure that we know what are those dreams of everyone in our practice, and that we're always focusing on that. And that can be anything from, I want to take my kids to Disney World, or I want to lose 15 pounds, whatever that dream is.
Right.
But that's a focus of MVP, and it's one of the ways that we're giving back and helping to elevate those people that are helping us to get where we all want to be.
Right. Yeah, it's very valuable.
That's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we talk about a lot is we want you to be better when you leave versus when you came. I mean, because it's a win-win. I mean, you're a better employee, you're a better potential employee for another organization. And I think if you could focus on that, their personal and professional development, it's just, like I said, it's a win-win for everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the ironic part is most people won't leave if that's your
Right.
idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
interesting.
Yeah, and it goes a lot towards creating a culture. And it's very contagious. So when one person sees that this is happening in someone else's life, then they, you know what I'm saying? So it's very contagious, and they're like, oh, okay, I want to share that as well. I want to share what my dreams are. I want to, get to this place, so it becomes very contagious, which is very helpful, to the work environment, as you can imagine, because then everyone's also trying to further each other's
Then you learn
personal
about
goals.
It.
Yeah.
It becomes more of a community goal, right? You each have individual goals, but you're each helping each other get to the same things. It's really
Exactly. Yeah, it's a much better way to work.
cool. Yeah.
Versus the alternative.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's funny because it's interesting because the people that, say for instance, our organization, people that come here after working elsewhere, they have a real appreciation for it. Probably similar like how you guys too. Like when people come in from working with other organizations, and the people that grew up here or that now don't leave, they get it because they buy into it and they understand the value behind it. But it's like they really, truly never got to feel
Truly
something
appreciate
other
it.
than that,
Right.
which thankfully that's good. But at the same time, it's like, oh, wow, yeah, these guys, it's fascinating to watch.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, we've had that happen in a couple of our practices, and not that, just to be truthful, like people leave, right? And they're like, well, grass is greener. I'm going to go make another $2 an hour.
Yeah.
And it's funny when 6 months go by and you're like, they come back knocking back. Well, it wasn't,
Yeah, well,
it's like,
it
well,
was
okay,
good.
so we're not doing things that poorly then.
Right,
Okay,
exactly.
So, but no, that's awesome. You guys have been able to do something like that. I mean, obviously small organization, but big.
Well, it's on a different level.
Yeah,
but
well, big on the scale of, I think, a lot of the practices that we've walked. I mean, this is bigger than most practices that are out there. And that's awesome that you've taken the time, frankly, to do that.
Right.
Because that's the hard part. Is I think ideas are good, execution is really, really difficult. And kudos to you guys for doing
Execution is very difficult.
Very difficult.
Procrastination is,
Is the
because
death,
of whether due to stress, so you procrastinate due to stress or the stress that it's going to cause, or maybe it won't work, or maybe, you know what I mean? All of those things can get into your head.
Yeah, all the little voices in the back of your head saying, maybe. Yeah.
So it's,
It's interesting, though, because I think one of the things that drives us is, and I've said this before, the chase to always be better. And that's what's led us to some of these ideas that we've stumbled upon. I mean, really, some of them we didn't come up with on our own necessarily. Right. But that constant chase to be the best. I try and look out in the marketplace if I have a consumer experience that I really enjoy, and I'll say, what are they doing that's so different from everybody else? And use those experiences to then try and develop something here and then implement it.
Right.
And say, I don't like to wait, or what? I don't know. Small things. Everybody hates to wait. Everybody, the things that apply to everybody, and say, what can we do to implement small things to create a greater value add,
right.
and from a consumer experience standpoint. So I think that's one of the things that keeps us constantly moving forward.
Right.
Is that constant chase to be the best you can possibly be, and it never ends really.
Never does.
It never does end, and I think but that makes it fun.
Right.
Otherwise things
That's
get
right.
stale. So
That's
that's fun.
What do you guys think are the things changing in veterinary medicine? Like, what do you see for the horizon in terms of the, picture of what it looks like?
How much time do we have?
I know, right?
Right.
I think there's a couple. I mean, yeah, we could take this, I think, a lot of different ways. I think, I mean, I'll start with the one that you were just mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and again, kind of coming from, 3 years ago, not knowing much other than kind of valuation and things like that, for me, what's been really exciting and the trend is there is a lot of money and competition coming into this industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, some folks, I don't want to say some folks have their head in the sand, but like to not know that Amazon and Walmart and Chewy and like there is a lot of money coming in and things are changing. They're changing very, very quickly and faster than, I mean, in the last 18 months for me, even realizing this as part of MVP, it's like things are changing a lot faster, whether that's cloud-based software, online pharmacy, name your part of that, right? It's competition everywhere. And when money from financial institutions comes into an industry, that creates a lot of competition, but it also creates this continuous improvement and investing in technology and investing in your team members that are on the bus and have this culture that you want to have. Because if we aren't changing, if we aren't thinking about these, you mentioned earlier, like the little things, and you kind of chat, you're like, yeah, they're little things, but like the little things are what makes the difference, right? At the end of the day, like those small changes, when you can make those incremental steps, that's how you're going to be competitive. That's how you have to think about, 10, 15 years down the road. And I think that's what's really exciting about where we're at and what our culture is, is we have a vice president of continuous improvement. She's a team, and their job is to think about this stuff that I'm talking about. How can MVP help our practices stay relevant 30 years from now?
Right.
Not 5, right? Like a long time. We want our practices and our groups to know that they've got an organization that isn't just saying, oh yeah, nothing's going to change. Don't worry about those small issues. It'll be fine. It's like, no. We need to be thinking about this, right? Because if we're not going to be relevant in 30 years. We're not going to be here, right? Somebody else is going to do that. And so for us, that change of technology, that change of I guess I'll use this example. I think it's growing up in Detroit, I guess, or near Michigan, knowing the auto industry. Detroit created this mass production economy, right? Cars, automation, let's do it, everything big. I think we're at the spot where it's mass personalization. And from a consumer standpoint, that's what consumers want. They want personalized medicine. I think human healthcare is starting to do it. I think veterinary medicine is going to do it, right? And so if you want to sit here today and say, yeah, we're not going to invest in the new IT, we're not going to invest in a new scheduling software, we're not going to be thinking about how to rework our front desk so we can make it more efficient and more personalized, you're not going to win. I mean, you said that earlier, right? You're not going to win. And I think that for us is a huge driver of our continuous improvement. Our CEO, our chief veterinary officer, our chief operations officer, like we have meetings where it's like, how can we help think about, and every practice is different too. So let me be like, not everything's going to be a one size fits all, right? Mass personalization. Let's figure out how we can work with each practice. But something like a cloud-based software system with a group of 65 hospitals, that can add tremendous value. And that might be a hiccup at the hospital level a little bit, but in 5 years, no one's going to be on the server anymore, 10 years, whatever that might be. And we need to make sure our hospitals are prepared for that. They're ahead of that. And our team members, again, back to the team, thinking about them, like we can't be the employer of choice if our hospitals aren't continuing to get better, and continuing to grow, and continuing to stay ahead of these things. And we want team members, and we encourage team members to be part of that, right? We want them part of that change. We want them to help us identify at their individual practice, what are the things that we can help with, and what are the things that we can improve this year, and what are the things next year, right? And so that's how, like, operationally we've taken that approach, and the trend being things are changing. Technology is coming into play. The day-to-day is going to be different, and it's not going to happen in a month, but it's going to happen, over a course of a couple of years, and we want to make sure that our team members are prepared for it. So that's a big one for us. And I mean, I think walking around here, you guys have done a pretty fantastic job of prepping for that stuff. Yeah.
How many hospitals right now are owned by Consolidators? What's the percent? Is it like 13%, 10%, something like that?
Depending on who you ask, I would say it's between 10 and 15. I think 15 is the high side, 10 is the low side if you talk to folks. The reverse of that is that's clinic count, and then I think there's clinic revenue. And I think it's probably closer to 25 or 30% of the revenue of the veterinary industry is consolidated. So does that make sense? Right.
Yeah,
the bigger practices are joining groups.
What do you think's triggered all of that to happen in the beginning, like to start with? Like, why did this Like, I think for some people, they might be interested to know, like, okay, well,
What happened?
Why veterinary medicine? Why is
Yeah.
this all this happening to veterinary medicine or the industry, our industry?
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think there's a people component to that, and I think there's also a financial component to that.
Mm-hmm.
The financial component is this has already been happening in human medicine,
Right.
physical therapy, ophthalmology, dermatology, dentistry, autism therapy centers, right? There are quote unquote multi-site healthcare where groups have already invested a lot of money because there's, from an investor standpoint, there is scalability, like we talked about earlier,
Right.
that can benefit the team members, can benefit the whole if we can kind of centralize some of those functions that every single hospital has that doesn't necessarily improve every hospital on the day to day. So I think from the financial side, they looked at veterinary medicine, 10 years ago and they said, wow, human medicine's already starting this. We should be thinking about this. And I think in the last 5 years, that's probably really picked up in veterinary medicine as the financial institutions, the folks that are investing in name your different stock, name your different industry. They looked at veterinary medicine and said, this is a really unique opportunity. And it kind of mirrors some of that centralization of the back support office functions that has happened in human medicine. So I think that's one part is money all of a sudden says this could be a good investment.
Okay.
And this could help. I think the other dynamic is student debt right now for associates is
Stupid. Yeah.
stupid. Thank you for that's the right word for it.
Stupid
That's the right
amount of
word
debt,
for it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the right word for it.
Yeah.
And so what that's doing is it's creating, I think the initial wave of consolidation was because there was a wave of older business owners that were 60, 70, and they had worked for 40 years, built their practice to whatever size it was, and they looked around and none of the associates
Want to buy it.
None of them wanted to buy it.
Right.
Or the owner didn't want to finance it.
Right.
Like
Right.
the owner didn't want to pay for them to buy it. So they started looking around like, well, what the heck are my options? And I think that was the initial wave. And I think where we're at today in the industry is that debt has compounded for a lot of new graduates. And now, because of groups like ours, we have the ability to pay more than historically has happened in the market. And so even if the associate could afford what it was valued at maybe 4 or 5 years ago, in today's market, competition has been so high that owners of veterinary practices are able to realize a pretty good monetization of their business. And I don't think folks should be sorry for that, right? I mean, you build your business for 30 years. It's like, that's why you did that.
Right.
And I think the student debt side of it, again, it's a problem, and it's a problem that we're trying to solve at MVP for the associates within our network, but they can't afford to go take out hundreds of thousands, however much more money they need to buy into a practice.
Yeah.
And then I think the other dynamic is, and I call myself a senior millennial, so
Right.
I am a millennial, but I'm a senior millennial.
Right.
And I like to think I maybe don't fall in this bucket, but we don't want to work as hard, right? So you think about the owners today
Right.
that they're working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And some of it's administrative, some of it's the business side, but a lot of it's just keeping the doors open.
Right.
And when, new graduates, 25, 30, 35-year-old, they're looking at the owner and they're going, geez, I don't want to work every Saturday and Sunday.
Right.
I think I could come here and I could be a contribution to the practice. And I want to do that because you've got a great culture and things are good. And I just want to be part of that. But I don't want all that responsibility, right? I want to go travel. I want to go do the things
So
that I
why
can.
do you think there's such a demonization of practice owners selling? From the standpoint of, do you know what I'm saying? Like you had mentioned it just briefly when you were talking, you shouldn't feel bad for it.
Right.
But yet there's that group of people out there. Why are you laughing?
I'm just nothing. I thought of a term. I won't say it, but yeah. I mean,
No, but I'm saying it's almost like, I don't know. That's the only word that came to mind. Where you're a bad person because
We are, yeah.
you're, you must be only thinking of yourself. You know what I mean? Or something like
Right.
that from that standpoint of things.
Right.
And I think that's a struggle for a lot of people. Those are all the reasons that you explained as to why people are turning to that as an option those
struggle.
Those are definitely
Yeah.
true. And you don't have younger people, and one, they can't afford it, like you mentioned, because of the student debt, so they're in a rock and a hard
crazy.
place. They
Right.
can't even afford their freaking house,
Right.
to buy a new house,
Right.
because of the amount of debt. I mean, I had an email from a parent last week who was like, hey, my son's talking about going to vet school, and I was like, well, okay, just so you know this, and I went through everything. I was like,
This
his
is the
return on
numbers.
investment,
Right.
is debt. You have to, if he's taking on debt for undergraduate and then debt on top of that, I'm like, you just need to know this.
Make an informed
You
decision.
know,
Yeah.
Right.
and and so we were laughing because he's a white male, and so I was like, well, that might be to his advantage in veterinary school because it's like we don't have hardly any men in veterinary
That's
school.
right.
It's like
You'd be
85.
And I was
a
like,
minority
you
in that
might-
school.
You might
Right,
actually
right.
have an advantage as a white
Right.
male, and so we were laughing about that. But it is such a huge amount of undertaking.
It is.
When I went to school, which wasn't forever ago, but it was kind of forever ago, it was only $32,000 for complete out-of-state tuition, all 4 years. That's as much debt as I incurred for 4 years of education out of state at Tennessee.
Yeah, this is the example
It's like
that
the
I always
first quarter now. right?
Yeah.
No, it's not, it doesn't. I mean, it's ridiculous.
The
Right.
example that I've always used is that, say yours was say 36,000. Let's just use that as a round number. Now it's 160,000, whatever. It's gone up 5-6
Right.
times. The wages haven't kept pace.
Right.
No.
And that's where I would always look at it and say, from an ROI perspective, to your point about prospective students, you have to look at it and say, if this is all my ceiling, is it worth this to do this?
Right.
And I think that's the challenge that a lot of
Yeah.
people are going to have is that your earning potential is somewhat capped, yet the cost to enter the industry, the barriers
It's
to entry is
so
so
high.
high. So
And it's the hardest medical school to get into across all medical professions, numbers-wise, percentages-wise. The hardest to get into. So we disagree with that too. And just quick comment on that concept is I think the good part of like what's happening in this industry with money coming into it is I think that's going to change.
sure.
One, I think schools are starting to realize this too, and so they're hopefully allowing more veterinarians to get in, and it'll kind of even out that supply demand. But I also think that wages, with money being invested in this industry, not only for the staff that we all care about, and we need, the ones that are hourly in our mind are the ones that we want to really, really take care of. But I think everybody in this industry is going to earn higher wages just with what's happening. Sure. So I think that helps. But $160,000 debt, I mean, you're in a hole, and I think that's really hard.
I do think you'll see changes, though. I do think you'll see
Yeah.
changes. I think technology. I do think the brick and mortar schools from an undergraduate level are starting to recognize the disruptors of online learning.
Yep.
And I think once you see that, I've always said, once you see an undergraduate school that's accredited and IU something that says, oh, by the way, instead of paying 80, you can do this for 30. As soon as you start to see that downward pressure on price,
Boom.
it'll be across the board. And I
Yep.
think that's probably the savior that will save a lot of people.
It's going to come back to a little bit of balance,
Yeah.
right? But Dr. Emily, back to just the demonization, if you will, of corporate. I kind of think of it in a couple ways. One, I don't know anything about my car, and so a mechanic could take it. Like I bring my car in, a mechanic could take advantage of me, and they have. But I know the good mechanic that hasn't, and I think there's a difference. And what I would say is I think in general there have been some bad mechanics in corporate medicine and veterinary or
Right.
corporate veterinary medicine, and I know we're not that. And so I think there are groups that get lumped together with maybe what historically has been a bad mechanic.
Right.
So I'll say that because I think there is an element of just educating, and I think we think we're a great group, and I think there's select others that I'd also put in that bucket. But I think there's that kind of perception. Part of that perception comes from mandating medicine, right? Mandating so that changed to me, corporate medicine. I think when we talk to associates and owners, one of their first questions is like, well, are you going to tell me how to practice? Are you going to come to the exam room? And we're like, absolutely not. And I think there's some groups that are, right? Which is fine. That's their business side. But I think that isn't what you went to veterinary school for.
Right.
That's not what you want to do. And so groups like ours, when we can say, our job, like our service stops on the business side. The medicine is for what you've been trained, like the folks that have been
Right.
trained to do that.
Right.
Right. So me as an economics degree, like
Right.
we should never, ever be telling how to practice. And I think that's a big distinction right away. So that's one barrier that can come down is like your call, right? You as a veterinarian, you as a tech in your team, we don't mandate medicine. Okay. I think the other failure that corporates have had is two things. I think there's one aspect where they come in and say, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. Just join our team, join our service organization, and you won't even notice. They're lying. Right? They're lying. And so, and then I think what that creates then is the owners have said, great, I found a group that nothing's going to change. My team won't even know. It's going to be perfect. And guess what? Day one, you're like, whoa, you said, right? And then all the team members go, what the heck?
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
yeah,
And then, so then that reverberates within a community.
Right.
And so that also can propel that side of it. And so, to me, I think there's, and then I guess the other side is the reality of what we're doing is I think there's a return on investment that our shareholders at MVP will have. And every corporate group out there is going to have. There's a reason money's being pumped in is because there's ways to do things more efficiently, become more effective, and from a business side, and I think there's a financial upside to that. And there are groups, most, that don't allow the teams to realize that financial upside with them. Okay, so I think one of the things that we said was, how do we change that perception, right? Because they know that we're doing this as a business because we need to make money, we need to return capital because we've got an investor, okay? But how do we make sure that they're part of that or they can be part of that? One is the Dream Fund, right? We absolutely want to make sure that we're giving back to our teams. But the second part of it is we allow ownership outside of just the selling veterinarians or the selling owners. So we have $20 million invested in MVP from veterinarians, associates, like practice managers, team members. $20 million part of our company. It's almost 50% of our business is owned by our team, which is really unique. And so I think some of that demonization is like, well, this group's going to buy me. They're going to come in and cut costs and fire people, and they're going to make all the money.
Right.
Now, that's not how we grow. We make money because we grow practices. We hire new people. We want to continuously improve. We want to improve. We're not MVPs. We don't make money because we cut costs. But when we grow and our stock price as a business goes up, and that $20 million that we have invested from our team can go up with that, and your tech, your practice manager, your associate can be part of that, that's really unique. And I think communicating that to them through that transition of, okay, we're thinking about a corporate group, let's find one that might make sense. That's where we've said we can really be different with that. And the conversations with the team and things like that, they go a lot better when you have that mentality versus like, don't worry, we're just going to, nothing's going to change. Like, it's just different. Right. And so I think for us, we saw that as well. We saw, like, what are they, back to you're going into consumer store, like, how do you make yourself different? We said that as like, we talked to a lot of people. You sold your practice. How'd it go? What went wrong? Right. What could have gone better? Right. And let's do that because there is a right way to do this. There is a right way to put the people and the team first as being part of our group. And that's important for us. And that's how I think we can get around that that stereotype, if you will.
That's really interesting too. I think the opportunity that you guys represent is fantastic to do things differently and to come in and change that perception and say, almost like a corporate to say we are this, but we're not this. Right. And I think that's really fascinating that you guys have identified that and are kind of taking it to the next step. Right. In terms of
over how many years do you think you see, like, what's the end game from a consolidator standpoint? Like, do you see that in 10 years, 50% of the revenue is owned by consolidators, or, way higher? Richie's going way higher than that.
Yeah, it might be up.
I don't know. I'm just curious.
What year is it? 2020? I heard 20% by 2020.
20% by 2020. Okay.
So that's this year. Okay. Which I heard that, I guess, 2 years ago. So. Okay. Yeah. I think there's a couple things. The trend is going to continue. I think the dollars, like the amount of money that's been invested, is this trend will continue. Back to the student loans, the associates, like there's always going to be a portion of the market where you find an entrepreneur veterinarian that wants to go start their own business, and heck yeah, let's do that, right? Not everybody has to be corporate, and we believe in that wholeheartedly, right? There are people that can go build a business, do it on their own, and God bless them because that's the lifeblood of any industry, right? As entrepreneurs, I think. That might have been a quote from my dad, but but I think there is this trend of owners are able to realize their life's work in a more significant way than in the past. And I think that's, again, we shouldn't be sorry for that. The difficult part for any owner in today's industry, because they know this is happening, is when's right for them, which is always going to be a question. And then to who, right? And who's going to be the group? Because when I think about what we're trying to do and how we can be different is, I think there are a lot of groups that are buying hospitals, partnering with hospitals, and they're doing that because they can make money by putting them together quickly and selling the entire business. And that's fine.
Right.
I think the tough part for owners, understanding what's happening in the market, is finding a group that is thinking longer term than 3 to 5 years, is thinking about, you know what, in 30 years, who's gonna be the best consolidator in 30 years? It's gonna be the group that has invested in their team, put their people first, and won the talent war.
Right.
Like they won the talent war, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had the best recruiters, they had the best benefits, they had the best programs, they could help with student debt, they could pay their team members more, they could provide the best benefits, because private equity owner, CEO, people at our home office, like all we're doing is committed to our team members. And if our team members can stay happy, we can retain them, we can recruit great talent. That's the group that's going to win. And I think the tough part is, because this is continuing to happen, is like, how do you sort through the BS, right?
Right.
How do you sort through who's going to do that and who's not? And I guess that's the challenge, I think, for not only the owners, but the team members too, right? Because if you're an 8, 9, or 10, and you just, or you're with a hospital that just partnered with some corporate group, and, it's not going well, you should leave, because you're in high demand,
Right.
right?
Right.
And find the group, find the support system that's going to help you individually, right? So it goes beyond just the owners and the veterinarians. Staff members, right? They all have options. And if it doesn't go well, and they have the opportunity to leave, I think that's their challenge too, is finding the group that they can believe in, the clinic and the culture, that's supported by an organization that's going to help them, right? Back to what you're saying earlier, like how do we make sure we're bettering those folks, so if they do leave, they're going to be in a better position than ever before.
Right.
And I think that's tough. And I guess one of the things that we talk a lot about internally is called a guilt-free partnership, right? And so back to that challenge is, we want the owners that sell to MVP and their team members that join MVP, we want 5 months, 5 years, 25 years. We want the owners to be able to walk back into the practice, get hugs from a lot of the same faces that they had there, and have those folks say, you made the right choice, right? You made the right choice. And church on Sunday or grocery store on a Tuesday night, like, we don't want our owners to have to put their head down and walk away when they see somebody that worked for them because they made the wrong choice.
Right.
And that, again, that's the challenge, is the owners trusting and finding a group that they'll feel good about, and
Right.
that their team will feel good about. And that's what, again, back to how we can be different, how MVP can set that stage. That's how.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, further consolidation is just going to happen. To your point earlier about a lot of the boomers that came into the market had their clinics. The number of people, it's so small that are taking an entrepreneurial leap to go out and do that. Don't you think? I think that it's
Yeah, do you
It is.
see
It's
an
tough.
organization like, I was just, like, my brain always starts going
Yeah,
when I hear people talking about different things. And, like, what about the person who wants to, they graduated from vet school, they go work for somebody, but now they want to start their own business, but they can't. Does MVP partner with people that want, can somebody come to MVP and say, hey, listen, I want to open up a clinic. Do you guys want to help me open up a clinic in blah, blah, because there's
In
nobody
wherever,
here,
right.
Or whatever it is. I've got
Right.
5 years under my belt. I'm ready to,
Yep.
do those things, for those people that have that entrepreneurial, that want that aspect of it, is that something that people explore, like that consolidators explore doing for people? Or
Yeah, I think there's different folks that have done different things there. We do. So if somebody came to us and said, hey, I the business side of this can, like the spot and picking the
Right.
location, let's assume that all works out.
Right.
We want somebody that can say, yeah, I'm going to go run this thing. I want to lead this thing. And we do it in two ways. One is, we call it like a joint venture, right? Where they could own a piece of that practice. We could own the other piece, make those investments, pro rata, right? So we're each investing at the same percentage or whatever the ownership percentage is. And heck yeah, like they'll get the support system, they'll be part of our group, but they're the owner and they have that piece of ownership. And then the other way is, we've had folks where say, I really, really want to do this. I really, really want to do this. We're saying, okay, well, it's not, what we're talking about right now isn't going to work for you to go start a practice, and we're not going to support you there. But let's think about this. How about you invest with MVP? Right? How about you be a lead doctor at one of our practices, invest with MVP. We have a matching program on an investment. We think that you can make a fair amount of money in a short period of time as being a shareholder of MVP. And so we can go to them and be like, listen, work with us for 5 years. Help be a leader within our organization. Run your practice. Do what you need to do. Like, we're not in the exam. We're not there every day. We don't want to be there. So if we've got a good leader, heck yeah, invest with us. See your share price as part of our group go up, And when we, when you can when you can take that money out, take it out and go invest and buy a practice, right? Because I think there's ways that owners, like, we should allow that.
Right.
And a lot of folks, frankly, are saying, how would I take that investment and pay off my student loans?
Right, exactly.
Which is good too.
First things first.
Right, first things first. But so we do it in those two ways. Where
So do the schools know that, do the veterinary schools, do they allow you to talk to students?
No.
Yeah, that's really a shame.
it is.
Because I think that it,
Why
it
not? Though, I
doesn't.
wonder.
I'm sure because they're old.
We had
Veterinarians.
trouble. I asked
Don't get me
that
started.
question.
I mean,
Right.
Yeah, because
they're
we had
slow-
trouble talking to
They're
them.
just
They wouldn't-
slow to change.
They
They're
are.
slow to change, and so as an industry, I mean, they're slow to change.
takes time.
They're dying. I mean, like you're. Still,
That's tough,
yeah.
though, man. I'm telling you. I
And
always
so,
think of
but like these
Blockbuster.
students should know that this
I
is an
do.
opportunity
right.
for them because like from a recruiting standpoint, so you can't go in and recruit.
So we do go to school, like you can go to like the booths,
Right.
right? And you can, I think there are some like career track things that we can talk about and be at.
Right.
They're not allowing us to say like, this is MVP's offering to potential graduates, right? Like it's more of like a conversation. And it
Well, you
has
know
to be
why? There's got to be something in
Yeah.
regards to like independent practice owners referral, like are they like somehow minimizing the, like me, for instance, and because Purdue, it's referral, it's all referral, and say they make all of us mad, like this is like say they make all of us mad, and we're not referring, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so there's some thought behind that, like they need to have first pick. Well, I can't. I mean, like you guys can, like. I'm just thinking, like, if I was...
everything is so interconnected now, and that's where I think the stodgy thing, I mean, not stodgy is probably the wrong word, but the not up to the times in terms of your paradigm is troubling, because you say everybody's connected now. You can reach anybody. You can target, you can micro-target, whatever you want to do. To put up that kind of false wall and ignore the forces that are creating that interconnectedness, it's tough, because to your point, you say, oh, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do this, until you're forced to.
Right.
And that's what I talk about Blockbuster. I'm like, you weren't forced to do any of this until you kind of went bankrupt.
Until you're out of business.
So,
right.
Until you have a disruptor that's of such a scale that you have to, and it's too bad that I don't know about Purdue, but I mean, just brick and mortar institutions don't think a bit further ahead on that kind of paradigm scale, such that they are making changes now to position themselves to accept and take advantage of those disruptors that are coming.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, because it's very interesting because the students that come out when they're interviewing, one of their questions is, "Are you going to be selling?"
Are you a corporate group?
And I'm like, "Well, are you going to work for a year and leave?" Like, I don't know what I'm doing in 6 months. Do you know what you're doing in a year? Because I don't think you do.
Yeah.
So why are you asking me? So they're being fed that information, and so that's why, and they're being fed it that it's something negative.
That's right.
And that's the
exactly
part
right.
that I don't like, because they need to have, instead of feeding them that information, they should be asking specific questions about
Which
if
group?
you are what
What's
are
the
your
goal?
objectives if you're
Right.
if you're considering selling,
I
kind of a
100%.
thing, because you could
100%.
sell to the associate.
Right.
It's the same. I mean, like, so
It's-
why
yeah,
are
sold,
you?
yeah.
I don't under. That's what
Well,
the
I
part
mean,
I
I
don't
think
get.
what's
that
interesting-
I
That's
think
a good
they're-
question.
Yeah.
I think that it's I came from the corporate world, so I've never had an issue with any of this stuff.
Right.
But I do think, to your point, they're ingrained, independent. Where in fact, I mean, if you're part of corporate, you are always to a certain extent quasi-independent in terms of what you do within the corporation.
That's right.
I think that's where that logic leap needs to be made. Is that you're still practicing medicine the way that MVP
You're
says.
still in
You're
the
still
practice.
you're still utilizing the skill set that you picked up in vet school in the way that you always envisioned. You just have these extra things that are being offered.
Right.
And it's too bad that's.
But
kind
it just
of
reminds me
mindset.
of the Super Bowl commercial where the ladies, they put the head in the sand,
Oh,
or
right.
the one, the Snickers or whatever. commercial
Right,
it was,
yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I'm like, why not just learn about it rather than, because either they're scared of it, there's some reason they're not
Right.
talking about it and ignoring it, and it's going to come back.
When
And-
you're in school, that's very insulated. Though. I think that's. I mean, in my experience in
Yeah,
grad
it's
school, you're
different.
kind of within that sphere of what everybody's saying. And to your point too, I do think there's probably a halo effect of the bad experiences people had with corporate.
right.
Sure.
So
Yes,
you're
that's
still
still- you're still fighting that,
You're
yeah.
slowly getting outside of that. So maybe 10 years from now, people are like, oh, well, it's not like that anymore. This is the way it is. So.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a combination of things too. We wish we had more access into new grads.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, there's ways to get access.
Yeah. Let's talk offline. No,
We'll talk later.
but it is interesting too, because I think the approach that we've taken is I don't say we're trying to beat down their doors, but we've hired people at
Right.
MVP to make sure that when that opportunity becomes available,
Right.
we're not like, oh shoot, we should go hire somebody to do this for us. Like,
Right.
no, we're ready for that step as an organization. And I think, again, back to that war on talent, like we want to make sure that our message is getting out there, and the practices that we have are part of this kind of support system at MVP. And if you like one of those practices or in your area, know that you're working with a group that is going to take care of you. And
Right.
I think it's a hard message to get to them in
Oh, sure.
in an institution, but at the same time, it's
absolutely.
that's what we try to do.
Yeah.
So
Very
I
cool.
think you guys are definitely on the right track. I think I always think of, and I'm a big Chick-fil-A fan, but I always think of how differently they do things and how they are in an industry that it's hyper competitive, and yet they're the most profitable. I have no idea their secret sauce for getting and retaining talent,
Right.
but it's consistent from Florida to California,
That's
wherever you go.
That's awesome.
And to the extent, I mean, they've done it right, and I try and look at places like that and say, they're doing it right. What can we do to
How do we
duplicate?
do that?
And you guys seem like you've really hit on that same kind of formula as well.
Appreciate that, and I think, yeah, it's been fun to be a part of, and it's been fun to go out and talk with folks just about what we're doing. And we talk to, I don't know how many practices do you talk to every week? I mean, a fair amount, right? I mean, it's our job to go out and talk to them.
Right.
And it's fun to find the folks that have that continuous improvement, have that culture kind of already built in, and we think finding those kinds of practices are, really impactful in this industry. And so you guys have done a fantastic job here, and we're trying to do a lot of the same stuff, just that with more practices too.
Yeah.
And I think one of the just to comment again, kind of on where we're at too, we took a pretty conscious effort and decision to invest in our support system far ahead of our growth. And so when we think about the folks like Chick-fil-A, and I would say if we were trying to be as profitable as MVP could be today, we'd have 30 people in the home office, right?
Right.
We wouldn't need that many. We've got 70.
Right.
Right. So we're trying to say, hey, the trend is there. How can we be different? How can we make sure that when clinics come on, they're not out in the ocean and their team members feel like they don't have a support system? And so let us, looking at some of the competitors in the market and kind of where they're at and how they grew, some of the bigger ones than us, we think we're built right now for about 150, 175 practices to be on our group just with our support system.
Right.
So we've made that decision to say, let's not be profitable today, right? Like as a business, we're still giving back to our team. We still think it's a great investment, all those things, but let's think about what this looks like in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Because if we don't have these things in place today, we're going to be playing catch up. We're going to be we're going to be built on stilts. We're not going to be built on bricks, right? And I think that is really important from our side, because I think that the groups that have joined us, one that matters, right? Because that's, if we don't have a support system, who's going to support your team?
Right.
That's the first question, right? And our job is to make sure that the team members that join us are supported, and we think we're in a pretty good position that way. And I think when I think about those big organizations too, it's like, I think the good ones, and when I think back to when I was with Shore Capital, and I saw different industries, I was working on opioid substance abuse treatment clinics, actually, and physical therapy and dentistry. And the groups that were failing were the ones that didn't have solid support systems, right? The clinics could be really, really good, but you know what happens when a good tech realizes that she doesn't have support? He or she leaves.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? And that is, and to your point, it's like that one person, that culture, all of a sudden, if it's like, holy crap,
cascades,
everybody's
right.
leaving. Yeah. Like, and so I've seen that in other industries. And I think when I joined MVP, I was like, that was first and foremost, is we are going to be a leader at this. And how do you become a leader is we have to have that support system.
Right.
We have to have it ahead of when our clinics need it. And that's the approach we've taken, which it's paid off. And obviously it's helped grow our team, and it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Well, we really appreciate you guys coming in today and
Yeah,
sharing
thank
your
you so much.
thoughts and your
Cool.
vision and everything. And try to get rid of some of the, stereotypes and things like that. It's pretty cool. One of the questions that we always ask our podcast guests
Yeah.
before they leave is, if you could go back in time, and this isn't too long for you, so it may not.
Hey, come on, senior millennial. Like I said,
if
senior
you go
millennial.
back and tell your 20-year-old self,
If you could speak with your 20-year-old self,
yeah, he
what would
says
you
it
tell
better
them?
than- what
If
would
you
you
could go
tell
back
them?
and speak to your
Yes.
20-year-old self, what would you tell them?
Oh boy.
Don't go to that mechanic.
Yeah. Don't go to that mechanic. So it's funny you say that. I don't have a lot of regrets in my life. I've got one that haunts me. I played hockey at Dartmouth. Played 1 year in the minor league pro, and I had a concussion. It was a bad year, and I was living in Boston. I was starting my career in finance and business, and I just called my parents. I just called the agent I was working with. I said, I'm done. I don't want to play. Like, I'm too exhausted. I'm moving on.
Right.
That same day, I got a call from an agent in Belfast, Ireland, and he said, "Hey, you got to be on a plane like in next week. You know, this is it. This is the setup. You'll go here. You should get on the plane." And I'm like, that's the one. I wish I would have for one more year.
You wish you would have done it?
I wish I would have gone to Europe. I wish I would have played. Yeah, I wish
Yeah.
I would have told myself to just go take that chance. Because when I look at where I'm at now, and I could have done a lot of the same stuff that I'm doing today, which I love, and I'm very passionate about what we do and what we do at MVP and my role in that. But that 1 year, I wish I would have said go.
Go.
I would have said go.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Mine's kind of similar to that. I would say it's okay to take the road that's less traveled, because everybody expects you to go to school. You graduate from high school, and then you go to college, and then you go get a master's, and then you go get a doctorate. I mean, it's just like it's what you do. And there are opportunities for me to have found people that were doing things that I thought were interesting, and to spend time listening to them and understand how they got where they were, because a lot of the times they didn't take that normal path, and I think it's okay to do things a little out of the ordinary to get you where you want to go.
Yeah. That's
like that.
very good advice.
That is good. Yeah,
Very
life
good.
is long. That's good.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Enjoy the road. That's right. Exactly. Well, we'll wrap it up here.
Cool.
Yep.
So
Thank you both again
thanks
for
again,
coming
you
on.
guys,
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
And everybody at home, don't forget to check out the merch store, asvcmerch.com. Before they leave, do you want to give them their
absolutely.
parting
gift. here.
Parting gift.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah.
Socks. Come
Yeah.
on, guys.
Oh, love
There
it.
you go.
Those
Yep.
are awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah, there you go. Some new socks for you guys.
Very cool.
So,
These
and
are sweet.
you can catch
Thank
us on the podcast channels, and then every Monday at 10:30 ish, somewhere around there,
Cool.
on Facebook Live and on Instagram. So we'll see you next time, and thanks everybody for joining us.
Thanks,
It's been
guys.
Five Boys in a Business. We're out.